Okay, sweet. So we're recording. Um, okay, so this interview is conducted for my human growth and development class, and I'm just going to ask you some questions about how you have been aging and your relationship with others and whatnot through your time period in life. So, question one, what age are you?
I'm 45 years old.
Okay. Second, I'm just going to type up your comments as we go. Second question, what are the visible signs of aging that you have noticed that are happening at this time in your life?
Probably that I'm not as agile as I once was. Um, that's probably due to gaining weight. I've also noticed that my vision has gotten worse, I think, just from aging. Those are probably the two most predominant things I have noticed.
Okay. I like that you touched up on not aging, on vision, sorry, because in some of the readings that we have been learning through this chapter, it states that with older age, your eyesight worsens, especially night vision and seeing close up. Does that uh, go with what you're experiencing?
Yes, I've always had night vision issues, but I've noticed here recently that my close vision I was having problems with, and I recently got bifocals last week. So that has helped me tremendously. So, and that's attributed to aging for sure.
Okay. Yeah. And then, so we're going to go on to our next question. It says, does your family have hereditary heart problems, cancer, hypertension, or diabetes?
Yes. My paternal side has both cancer and heart disease. Um, Breast cancer, my paternal mothers
Mhm.
um, had breast cancer, and there is a strong history of heart disease on my paternal side. My father passed away when he was 46 years old of a heart attack. And then his father passed away also of a heart attack at a young age as well. Stroke is something that also runs on my paternal side, um, mostly on the female side. And then on my maternal side, the only thing there would be um, probably cancer, mostly bowel cancer from my maternal grandmother, and then also my aunt, my maternal aunt.
Okay. And then, are you aware of the signs and symptoms of these health problems?
Yes, I am. I'm a registered nurse, and so I am aware. Mhm.
Okay. And then, do you show any early signs or symptoms of these hereditary problems?
No, not currently. I had a baseline cardiac workup when I was 35, and still don't have any issues with high blood pressure. Nothing at this time, no.
Wonderful. Okay. So, since entering this stage of life, middle aged, have you noticed any cognitive or intellectual decline in how you make decisions or remember things?
I make a list daily because with my current position, my job, I am responsible for a lot and I have a lot that comes at me. So I tend to make a lot of lists to work through those to make sure I'm getting everything done. Um, Probably in my personal life, I don't know that I've noticed anything outside of the normal when it comes to that. Not that I can think of it. Um, I, I, I do probably make some lists at home as well, just so I can remember things too. It's kind of just become part of my everyday to day life, honestly. List making, checklists. So
Yeah. So, when you are like list making, is that how you like to stay organized kind of with everything?
yes, yes, I consider myself to be fairly organized.
Awesome. Okay. how have your relationships changed with others since entering into this stage of life? And I'll ask you about specific people in your life, such as we'll first start with your spouse.
Um, I don't really think that anything's changed probably. We're both empty nested and kind of entering that stage of life, and definitely more financial secure in this stage of life. Gonna start enjoying some traveling, those kinds of things together.
Wonderful. And then how has your relationship, you said that your father had passed. So how's your relationship with your mom changed through the years?
I think I've probably had a greater sense of independency. Um, I was very reliant upon her for many years because my father passed away when I was young. And so there was kind of a dependency that I felt on her, but I also felt too that I needed to take care of her, be available to her, et cetera, et cetera. And not so much, I don't feel that way so much anymore. So I would just say a greater sense of independency. Although I've noticed in her stage of life, now it's kind of more of the um, maybe possibly me taking care of her time in my life because she is aging and having health problems, and so just thinking around her next steps and what that means for me.
Wonderful. How do you how would you say that your relationship with your children has changed over the years, especially since you've entered your middle agehood?
I think that it's um, probably as far as changing again, independence, allowing the independence, trying to move out of that. Oh,
Oh, I lost you. I don't have audio on you. Just one second. My internet is off. I think it's okay. Try talking to me again.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Sorry,
Hello?
my internet got a little twiggy.
Okay, that's okay. I think just allowing independence uh, for them, that would be it. Figuring life out on their own.
Yeah. Okay, how would you feel that your relationship with your coworkers has changed?
Um, I've recently just changed job roles. I was in um, a director role for approximately 13 years, where I managed a department. And a year and a half ago, I transitioned into an administrative role. So now I'm no longer over one department, I'm over basically the entire hospital here. And so focusing on specific departments, but my role is to represent the hospital. So um, it's changed with my coworkers just because I'm in a different role. I'm seen in a different light now than I was with my other role. Um, so
Alrighty. And then how would you say your relationship with your neighbors has changed?
this also, I've recently moved, and so I have new neighbors. So it's just getting to know them getting to know us, but seems to be going really well. They're very friendly, very social, and pretty much I just kind of keep to myself. It's more of like a neighborhood watch, if you will, just that trust that you know that your neighbors are going to watch out for you if you're not there or vice versa. So it's just kind of developing that.
Alrighty. And then How does your age differ from your neighbors? Are you all about the same age, or are you a little bit older or younger?
I actually, we are the youngest in our neighborhood. We live in a cul-de-sac and our population is 65 plus. So, excuse me, we're 20 years younger. So I don't mind that. It's kind of nice having that because it's a pretty quiet neighborhood. And again, they're all retired. And so they're usually home every day. And so they kind of keep a watch on everything. So um, I think we're the only two in our neighborhood that actually work. So
Okay. Okay, and then in some other readings that I have read for this class, it states that rates of happiness are highest in years prior to the birth of the first child. It hits a low point with the coming of children. Do you agree with that statement? When it comes to like with your partner?
what was the
Um,
first part of that?
okay, so it says that rates of happiness are highest in the years prior to the birth of your first child. It hits a low point with the coming of children. Do you agree with that statement?
Absolutely not. Not, no way. Um, I think that having my first and only child was probably the highlight and became the center for both of us. So I totally disagree with that.
Okay, and then we're gonna kind of backtrack a little bit and talk a little bit more about your career now. I know you touched on it a little bit, but I have some follow-up questions. So, are you comfortable and content with your career at the moment?
Absolutely. Um, I am currently working on getting my master's degree, and I'm a little more than halfway done with that. So um, I'm probably professionally where I probably never dreamed that I would be where I'm at today. And this is probably at the top of my list of where I want to be. Probably the next step up for me would to be a CEO or president, and I don't have that desire. I really like where I'm at managing. I'm the vice president of patient care services of a hospital, and so I oversee all the nursing areas, pharmacy, cardiac rehab, respiratory therapy, surgical services, obviously inpatient services, outpatient services, so chemotherapy. So,
Yeah, so that's a lot on your plate. Do you feel overwhelmed sometimes with how many departments you overwatch?
I don't, I haven't necessarily. COVID's made that a little bit challenging just because that came in and it's kind of been the focus. But I have underneath of me five phenomenal, well, I have three, four department directors um, that manage their areas. And then I have one supervisor that's underneath of me as well. And so they really manage the day to day for me. And then, so I don't have to do a lot of the day to day. It's more of a lot of, they're making those hard decisions and running those departments. It's just kind of a reporting up structure to me. So.
Um, okay, I know you touched on it a little bit, but I just kind of wanted to get a more concrete answer. It asks, do you want to advance or change your career in the future?
At this time, no. Um, I really feel like where I'm at, I really enjoy what I do. I have a sense that the nursing field is going to be going more toward with the social determinants of health, um, keeping patients at home, keeping them healthy in their environments. And I am kind of passionate about that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens and what where healthcare transitions into, to see where that takes me. Um, but I see that being in this role that I'm in now, and
Mhm.
just developing new service lines, working through some of that. Telehealth is another thing. I'm not in charge of telehealth here at Community Hospital, but obviously I work close with the person that is. And so being able to have access to care is very important to me for our patients. So um, probably staying with what I'm doing. It's just transitioning into what that looks like in the future.
And then how long has it been since you had that major job change from going from being a director and into administrative?
It's been 18 months, so a year and a half. I transitioned in March of 2019 into this current role, into an administrative role. And it took it was about a 9-month process from the time that I applied for the job, went through a series of interviews, etc. It was a 9-month process from the start to when I got the job. So
Awesome. And then what lifestyle choices have had a strong impact on your health status? So like exercise, dieting, habits, etc.
yeah, I'm terrible at all of those. I have a terrible diet and I am terrible at exercising. Definitely two things I could do way better at. I know I need to, as I'm aging, do better at those things. I've probably in the last 3 years gained 50 pounds. So, which is not great, but, and we all know that losing weight is very difficult. So I need to continue to work on that.
Is there any habits that you have that impact your health status? So like do you smoke or do you drink more often than not?
No, I'm not a huge I don't consume a lot of alcohol. And I don't smoke. I'm kind of boring, really. Um, I don't know that I have any habits that I can think of except for sedentary lifestyle, which is kind of a habit. So
Okay. And then if you could change your choices from the past, what lifestyle choices would you change?
I think my sedentary lifestyle um, goes back to when I was growing up. Um, I kind of grew up in a family where I wasn't really exposed to sports, athletic. Both my parents weren't very athletic. And so I was more brought up on the art side of things, music, choir, vocal, those art, that realm versus the sports realm. And so sports was never really pushed on me. Exercising was never pushed on me ever. Um, as far as food goes, my mom did actually, she made sure that she cooked a meal every night. We had family dinners at the table. Um, so that part was good. And the food that, I mean, she made well-balanced meals. But it was just the activity part that I didn't grow up with. So I wasn't ever really exposed to that. Probably until I got into junior high. And then growing up in a small community, basically all kids go out for sports because everybody's doing it, so you do it.
Mm.
So that was kind of my first exposure to sports. And I really enjoyed playing sports. I played all sports. In my junior high years, I did volleyball, basketball, track. I played softball. I really enjoyed softball. I really enjoyed volleyball as well. And then in high school, my freshman year, I did all sports as well. And then I transitioned my sophomore year into um, more of a manager role. I love football, and so I was able. My three best friends and I became football managers, and so which was really a great experience for me. And so I transitioned out of being like involved in sports to being a support. I also did, I was wrestling manager as well for a year or two in high school. But my focus in high school was more on leadership activities, student council, those kinds of things, and then band, choir, drama. I was in plays. So that's where my activities went to more than the sports side of things in high school. And then in college, I didn't do any sports or any activities like that. I just focused on my studies.
Okay. And then do you predict you will have, or have you felt that you have experienced a midlife crisis?
No, I don't think I have yet. um, I think I've had some challenging things within my life, but I think it all depends on how you handle it and how your mindset is, whether you want to call it a crisis or not. Life's about challenges and unexpected, and so you just have to kind of go with the flow. That's my thought, and it's a good way. All challenges are good ways to grow and learn from. And so I've had a lot of things probably in my life that has made me grow and things I won't tolerate anymore, et cetera, et cetera. Just basically growing as an individual from.
Okay, and then our last question. How have your attitudes toward life changed from being a young adult and now transitioning into that middle-aged hood?
I would say that probably when I was younger, in high school, in college, um, I was I've always kind of been a free spirit, but I think as I've gotten older with more responsibility, I'm probably not quite as free as I once was. And that's probably due to the responsibility and life struggles, life experiences. I used to be extremely trusting of people. I didn't know a stranger and I trusted everybody. Um, Times have changed, I think, and nowadays that's probably not a safe way to look at everybody. Social media has changed a lot for in my generation. In my generation, when I was growing up, um, we didn't have social. There was no social media. It probably wasn't until I was in high school that we had cell phones. The introduction of cell phones was probably when I started high school. But there was no Facebook. That came after I was in college. Um, so I think just being aware of, my surroundings, where before nobody knew what I was doing because it wasn't posted everywhere. We didn't have Google where you could search your name and look up anything. So now what I do in my day to day, and especially where the job that I'm in, it's not necessarily a high profile job, but I am because I am a vice president, there's certain responsibilities that come with that. And so I am aware of that. Um, so
Okay, so kind of bringing in the social media standpoint of it, do you feel like since you've gotten older and like looking at the younger generations, is social media kind of an issue, do you think, like versus growing up not having it and having to have those relationship with people that you saw day to day, and now the younger generation, we're having relationships with people we've never even met, How do you feel about that?
I think you can look at that either way. There's some good things out of social media, for sure. The thing that I do think that people have gotten away from direct communication, in-person communication, if you will, picking up a telephone, calling somebody because it's quicker and easier to text somebody than it is to have a physical conversation with somebody. Um, is that right or wrong? I don't know. I wasn't brought up that way, but I think for your generation, that's the norm. So I can tell you that from an elderly population, um, where social media really is unheard of. I'm talking for those people that are maybe in their 70s, 80s, 90s. They rely on physical socialization. It's very important for them, because they can get depressed, they can feel alone. Um, and so having somebody talk to them, not over text, but physically talk to them, that's what they're used to, that's all they know, can mean so much. Um, I think that there's some things with social media too, because people can't put their phones down. So for your brain, it's a constant, like your brain never has time to relax because it's a constant, 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 constant. For that, I think that's bad. I think we've seen an increase in behavior issues, suicidal ideation, depression, bullying, all of these things. And I think it's related to people posting their every move on social media. Because before people didn't know what other people were doing and they didn't have to keep up with, what the style was, or, wanting to be like the superstar or whatever. It was never like that before. And now that's what social media has kind of, I think, formed into for your generation. So in my generation growing up, we didn't have that at all.
And then to conclude this interview, do you have any advice for the younger generation or people transitioning from their 20s and their 30s and transitioning into that 40 middle-aged range?
Um, it's a good question. I don't know that I do. I think just cherish every moment that you have, whether what age you are. I enjoyed my 20s very much. I enjoyed my 30s. Turning 40 didn't bother me. Turning 45 bothered me just a little bit. But I still, sometimes it's hard for me to believe that I'm 45 years old. And sometimes I still think back in my mind that I'm 16, 18, 20. It depends on who I'm talking to or, whatever. But I think just, embrace every step of life that you have. You only have one life. So rather than dwell on the small things, look for the future and keep your head up and keep moving forward.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Molly, for doing this interview with me. I really appreciate you taking your time out of your day. I can tell that you're at work, to answer just a few of my questions for this class. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.